So about to ride the Kawasaki Versys 1000 for the first time. Okay, so I haven't had a Kawasaki since a GPX 750R back in probably the 90s. In fact, I haven't even ridden a Kawasaki for like 20 years, I'm embarrassed to say, because they've been producing some good bikes in that time. Just often quite, not kind of, you know, often quite nearly bikes, not necessarily class leader. And over the years I've been attracted to the class leader and the best technology and the latest technology, and that's probably a disservice to other bikes. And now I review bikes in my spare time. I thought it's about time I climbed back on a Kawasaki to see what it's like, and this is very different from the class leaders, and we know the class leaders in the BMW GS, obviously, the Ducati Multistrada, and the KTM 1290, and even this year Harley Davidson joined us with the Pan America, which looks to be a very good effort early on. And this is quite a different proposition. It's playing in a different price point, and instead of a twin, it's also a 4. And being a 4 blesses it with smoothness, but often vibes as well. So which sounds a contradiction, but what I mean is the engine delivery is very smooth, very linear, but sometimes in certain gears at certain revs it can give tingles through the bars and seats and hands, or inline 4s can, generically speaking. So it'll be interesting to see how this feels. I've adjusted the screen, which is a manual adjustment. Got 2 adjusters either side. I'll put it in its highest setting, and normally I'll start a kind of demo ride by giving you all the specs and figures and numbers, and I'm not going to do that, and I deliberately didn't look at them online prior to this ride, because I wanted to see what it was just like just getting on it. You know, like kind of with modern tech, sometimes it can be a phantasmagorical thing, yet so intuitive. Apple's a good example. Most Apple products, you don't need to read the manual, you just start using them and everything is intuitive and everything works. Well, it's kind of the same, just adjust my camera a little, hopefully you're getting a reasonable view. You know, it's kind of the same with motorcycles. Sometimes it's nice just to get on them and see what works and what you can't figure out from the get-go. Now I'm trying a new camera setup today. I've inverted the camera and I've changed some of the settings, so it'll be interesting to see how well this does or doesn't come out on camera. We'll have to see. Anyway, you've got your mode adjusters there. You're going for the trip B, lean angle, odometer, and then you've got a preload adjuster here, which you can adjust. It's on solo person at the moment, but you can adjust it for whether you want luggage or not. And then you've got a cruise control button here, which you can set and then go up and down, so nice and easy. Nice reset, dedicated reset button for your trip, so just hold it down and it'll reset to 0, which is nice. This is straightforward start and flashing lights as usual, and this one's fitted with heated grips. I'm not sure if that's standard, I will check that, but again, nice little dedicated button to that there. Currently in sport mode, so we'll see how responsive this is. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a processional demo ride as such, and you get different people of different ability on that. I have to say, this is a dedicated Kawasaki tour rather than a dealer demo event as such, and it's put on by Freedom Power Sports in Canton today, so shout out to them. However, it's doesn't look like the turn signals are self-cancelling. However, it's run by Kawasaki, and Kawasaki bought their hardware today, so these are all Kawasaki machines, and it's nice when manufacturers believe in their product and put them out there for you to try. So I would urge anybody who's never been to a demo day, get out there, ride some bikes, you find out what you like, don't like. And just a couple of quick tips on that: you find the bikes that don't go out on the ride outs, or ones that are not popular, will not sell well, do not have good residual values. The ones that you'd really like to ride and suddenly you're told you can't ride for 2 hours because it's fully booked up, they're the ones that tend to be this year's flavour of the month, and will no doubt sell well this year and keep their residual values this year. So just a quick point there. These mirrors are a really bloody weird shape, if you ask me. They might as well have put diamonds on them. But having said that, there's no vibes through them at these lower speeds, kind of almost urban speeds at the moment, and you can see what's behind you pretty clearly, and they are wide, which is nice. Let's talk about general ergonomics. I can immediately say this seat is sumptuous, very, very comfortable. It's very nicely padded, it's very wide, and feels a little on the soft side, which is brilliant for shortish journeys. I'm not sure on a 300-mile day whether you'd start compressing the padding and then it would start becoming a bit uncomfortable, but besides the seat, you have to take into account the suspension. Now, this doesn't have any fancy Dan's electronic Öhlins suspension like my Ducati Street Fighter, for instance, but it's providing pretty good ride quality at these low revs. We've got these tar snakes here that I'm deliberately hitting just to see whether I'm feeling the feedback. I'm feeling the feedback, but nothing harsh, nothing, you know, that's going to jolt you out the seat or anything like that. I'd say the preload is very, very good, front and rear. It's nicely set up for steering and to get the most out of the compression and the rebound stroke. I'd say on the rear, the compression is a little bit soft and the rebound is very good. Normally on most road bikes that is the other way round. You'll find the compression is quite firm and the rebound just can't cut it when you hit a dip and that suspension unloads. You should have trouble controlling it. This is almost the other way around, but I'm nitpicking. The ride is very good. Front end is excellent. I can't remember a time, you'd probably have to go back before 1985 when Kawasaki had a bad front end. They seem to get that pretty good. Could do for my weight and style, although this road looks smooth, it's actually very rippled. I would say a couple of clicks of compression on the front, and this has the electronic suspension on the front actually. So I'm not sure where the adjusters are for that. I'd have to look in the book, but it does appear to have a cable going into the right hand fork and one into the left as well. So quite often these days you have compression and rebound in separate forks. It saves a bit of money, but still works pretty well. Even though we're at low speeds 45, I'm starting to get a little bit of turbulence off this screen. I think it is maybe, I don't know whether it's too wide or this arc, which is a bit strange, or possibly it's this here. Yeah, I think it's more that. This gap here is usually much smaller on other bikes, and I think they've made that a little bit too big. But you know, screens are easily changed out. It's nothing bad, but at 6'2", I'm noticing it. I'll notice it more when we get on the freeway ride, no doubt. Now, what's the heart of any motorcycle? Has to be the engine, right? Pretty good. I don't know if this has a quick shifter, but I just did a clutchless upshift then. It was effortless, no problem at all. So I can go down. I can go down. Either I'm just a riding god, or it has a pro shifter. You can go up and down the box. That's nice. You've got a 12-volt socket there, so if you want to run your GoPro or your Garmin or whatever, charge your phone, you can do that with the right accessory cable. Now, this doesn't feel too top heavy. Hope we're going to get some twisties and we can actually start throwing it around a little bit. You know what these rides are like. But normally with an inline four, just given, you know, the architecture, you've got all the cylinders pointing skywards, it's often gives a top heavy ride. A Tiger 1200 is a good example of that. It feels like it's carrying its weight high up. This really isn't that bad actually. It almost kind of reminds me of a GS, and that is probably the highest compliment I can probably pay it, really. Yeah, I'm starting to, you know, I've only done a few miles on it, and I'm actually starting to feel the seat is, I don't know. It's like I say, it's kind of wide. It's got deep padding, softly padded, but I think it could be a bit firmer for bigger miles. That quick shift is pretty good on the upshift. It's not in the league of Ducati with Street Fighter and Multistrada, but I'd say it's probably up there with say a KTM 790. It's pretty good company. There's a lot of bad snobbery when it comes to big adventure bikes. You know, it's never a bad decision buying a GS. Great residual values, probably the greatest all-rounder ever made. Never a bad decision if you're really not sure what to buy. The Multistrada issue is just phenomenal, probably bike of the year, and KTM may have matched it with the 1290. That's such a big makeover. The GS could actually be third best big adventure bike this year. Gasp, sacrilege. So there's a lot of snobbery around that, but I can tell you, you know, just on initial impressions, this is probably, you know, for Multistrada's a 10 out of 10. This is a solid 7 at the moment, and given the huge price difference, which I'm guessing off the top of my head is probably about double, I would think this is probably something like an $18,000 bike, and the Multistrada is going to cost you the best part of 30 grand by the time you get it out the door, with everything on it that you need or want. It's a lot of bike for the money, actually. Feels very solid, very smooth, very predictable. On the overrun you can feel the weight a little bit more, I'll say that. So, you know, if I roll off here I can feel the weight just a little more, but it's not in a bad way. Like the you know, the old twin Multistrada, you didn't feel its weight too much, but when on the overrun, if it's a kind of off camber, it can start to understeer rather, and that's indicative of the geometry and the weight. This holds its line pretty well, so that's a nice touch. Now often, you know, if I'm guilty myself of this, I'm sure you are, if the dealer chucks some keys at you and tells you to ride for an hour, what do? You treat it like you stole it, right? And that's not necessarily indicative of the real world. This is indicative of the real world. You know, with fourth gear, 40 miles an hour, trundling along, can't go any faster because of the traffic ahead, and so you sit there and you cruise in third or fourth gear. And a bike that is comfortable and steers well and makes you feel good out cruising, you know, third, fourth gear at 50, 40 miles an hour or something, that's probably more useful to you than something that, you know, is kind of knee down perfect at 120, because unless you're at the track, they don't mean much, particularly on a bike like this, because you're not going to be taking it to the track, right? You're more likely to be putting the wife on the back, loading up with luggage and going away for a romantic weekend, hoping to get lucky. And I would say this may appeal to the family man, which might be on face value a strange thing to say, but what I'm trying to say is that a family man has, you know, 2.2 nuclear kids or whatever, and a wife to keep happy, and as well as paying the bills and putting food on the table and clothes on their back and making sure they're schooled, it's not going to leave a lot of money, or if it does, you know, he's going to feel very guilty spending 30 grand on a bike or something. However, this, particularly if the wife likes to ride on the back, maybe the kids are getting slightly older, looking after themselves, they've got their own friends, they don't want to be hanging with the olds, this is a great Sunday morning blaster and weekend romantic escape bike, and it can certainly do 2-up duties. Let's give it a bit of lean angle. Yeah, it's not bad, very predictable. And brakes, smooth, progressive, not the most powerful, but again, unlikely to be riding this like a race bike, or even like a sportier adventure bike like the Multistrada. You're just not. You're more likely to be, you know, cruising around in mid-range revs, which will be, I think this redline's at 10 by the look of it. Despite having 14 on the gauge, it actually redlines at 10. You're more likely to be riding around this kind of 4,000 to 6,000 revs in the mid-range, keeping it smooth, keeping it cool, and just enjoying the ride. Now, another bike this reminds me of, strangely enough, even though they're not, well, they're in a class apart, is the Tenere 700 from Yamaha. The thing with the Tenere Yamaha compared with, say, the Tiger or the KTM is it's not as hardcore. It's not made for hammering hard. It's not ready to race like the KTM, and it's not made for hammering hard with total credibility off-road like the Tiger. What it's made for is to get somebody 50 miles up the road in comfort, so that they can ride the trails all day and then 50 miles home at comfort at legal speeds. And if you ride it at legal speeds, it's an absolute joy, that bike. It's so comfortable, it's so smooth, it's so predictable, it's not trying to kill you all the time, and you don't feel you have anything to prove on it. And the Versys 1000 is kind of that. It really is. If that's you, if that sounds like you, go and give one a try. Now, you're not going to look at this and just, you know, it's not going to drop panties and wet knickers just on looks alone. It just isn't. Adventure bikes aren't the coolest looking bikes in the whole damn bike yard anyway, are they? Let's face it, they're often a bit more function over form, or at least a balance of. And even Ducati, who've made a good looking bike in the Multistrada, can't make it sexy and desirable like a Panigale. It's just the nature of the beast. So this is kind of you know, a little bit the uglier sister. It's not really ugly, but it's like, you know, I don't fancy your one much, mate. You know, you're going to take the other girl over this one, given the choice. But, you know, look, I've dated models when I was a younger, good-looking man, and believe me, they're more hassle than they're worth. You throw all your money at them, and what you get in return isn't that grateful. When you go out with a bit of a fat lass, she's a cheap date, and she's very grateful for it. This is kind of a bit like that. It's like, yeah, you know, yeah, it's not the most stunning thing in the world, but it's a fish and chip supper, right? You haven't got to buy a beluga caviar and Dom Perignon and hope for the best. This is a real world, give me some pizza and coke and we're good to go kind of girl. And there's nothing wrong with that, is there? Absolutely nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, different strokes, all that jazz. Let's drop back a little, we'll give a bit of revs. We're at 2,000, gear to 6,000 revs. Let's go. Actually, I'll take it back a little bit on the brakes there. It's got some good acceleration, let's give it that. And the brakes are pretty good, actually, given the weight of the machine. I would say they were very good. Not ultimate stylemma type, you know, oh my god, these are anchors, I've just broken my neck type braking, but very smooth, very predictable, and excuse me, bags of feedback. I like that a lot. I like having a lot of feedback in the brakes, because in an emergency it's really nice to have, for sure. Absolutely zero problems finding neutral. Please take note, Mr. Harley. And this is a colour screen. It's not touch screen, but it's a nice TFT, and it's very clear. It's quite small, so we're mixing the digital with the analog. I'm not a fan of that. I'd sooner have all digital, or in a retro bike maybe all analog if it's done well. But I'm a fan of digital because numerics are larger and a bit clearer. And we've got a little display here that goes up as you rev it. It says TN, I think. Not sure what the hell that means. There's one next to it that says BRK. Oh, that's brake. It says brake and throttle, basically. So throttle, throttle. Now watch the one on the right, brake. Just showing you how much you're using it, I guess. I mean, I kind of thought that's the idea of the tachometer for the throttle, unless you're not getting what you're using. A bit of WYSIWYG for the older guys. Nice proper fuel gauge up there, and I like to see that rather than just you know, although miles to empty can help. So we're back. Overall, you know, bikes are getting good, getting harder to criticise. I don't like the look of the bike. It wouldn't be for me personally, but I think it's great value, and I totally get and understand why somebody might buy the Kawasaki Versys 1000. Good job, Kawasaki. Nice bike.
Hey you, if you want to become one of the Ride On people, don't forget to subscribe. Ride often, ride carefully, ride on.